Hello people of the world, Nebulous here and welcome to Tom Clancy's The Division. Today I'm going to be doing a pretty long and in-depth review into this third-person cover-based shooter. I'm going to be going through pretty much all of the aspects of the game bit by bit. So if you're new to the game, it will also give you a general introduction to the game as well. So if you do enjoy this video, please do like. Please do that cheeky subscribe as well, and do enjoy the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you agents on the other side. See ya. So we're back a little bit too quickly. However, I must quickly note that this review, which took me ages to create and stitch together, did actually get created before the major update, which was the first main update introducing the very first incursion. And so I'm going to have an update review for that update coming up. But first, this is just going to be the general idea. But if you just want to watch the update review, I'll put a link in the description. Thank you for watching this video anyway. It's still just as nearly as valid, but a little less valid due to the update. The Division utilises a classic Gears of War cover shooter system, and it succeeds beautifully in creating this. Cover to cover transitions are crisp, and although a little stiff at times, movement too is generally strong. The ability to roll adds great dimensions to the game, as it allows you to dodge out of those pesky grenades. There are a small set of abilities to choose from, only allowed 2 in combat, but each feels like it has a deserved place and input into the fight. But by far, the thrill of the fight and the game comes from the advanced AI. These foes are often strong and devise cunning tactics to bring your demise. Little will they sit back in a firefight, and more often attempt to flank and pressurise the players. Grenadiers bombard you with grenades, while snipers wait for you to poke your head up. Heavy gunners soak up large amounts of damage, as well as heavily punish you and suppress your position. Engineers throw out turrets to suppress or crossfire, all into a more realistic and intense fight. This leads to a more player versus player-like environment, as enemies feel more like players than advanced AI, and does add a huge amount of replayability to most of the missions. Upon completing the introductory stages of the game, you'll be introduced to your very own base of operations. Here there are many things you can do, starting with merchants. These merchants change daily and sell different types of gear depending on what type of merchant. So a weapons merchant will sell weapons. Simple enough? The game implements a simple crafting system, using materials such as electronics, tools and weapons parts to create your gear. The stats on the gear are, however, randomised, and I think this is a disadvantage, as it does mean you have to recreate the gear quite a few times. Outside of the ordinary stats, weapons in this game implement a talent system. Talents are extra bonuses that you get on a weapon if you fulfill the requirements. The requirements are either firearms, stamina or electronics, which are the 3 main stats which are obtained from armour. On each weapon there is a whole host of mods that you can choose between. These mods range from scopes, magazines, underbarrels and more. These modifications are just as important as the weapon themselves, and it's key that you get good ones. Similarly, abilities are just as important as modifications as your gun. There are 9 main abilities and 3 significant ones, each ability hosting 3 modifications. I personally like this model, as it does mean that, for example, the Seeker Mine you could have either airburst or mini-bots, which puts out loads of little Seeker Mines and just allows for some variation. These mods and skills are available from building segments in your base of operations. Once you've built all of the segments in your base of operations, you'll get the Master modification, which is just a huge bonus. Talents next, and talents are obtained in the same way as skills and modifications, so building in the correct order is vital. You can have 4 slots in total once you have built everything, once you've finished building your medical wing and I've reached level 25. Personally, I don't think most of those talents are useful, although quite a few about maybe half of them are very useful. Finally, perks are obtained in exactly the same way, and these are generally not very big boosts, although some of them can be quite useful. So on to content, graphics and presentation of the game. Now there is no denying that this game is a beautiful game and the graphics are very, very good. And it has done a very successful job in creating a very realistic looking Manhattan, and I do believe that it is pretty much accurate to real life. And as I did say, it does feel like a realistic living world. It doesn't just feel like, you know, cover is in places just because it needs to be. It actually feels like that cover's there because, you know, some lorry driver has crashed into the store or something. It just feels like it's all real. Animals run around you, dogs will bark at you, you know, the average people just walking through the street, and it just leads to, not vibrant, but definitely not vibrant, but just a sort of dark, you know, apocalypse type feel, but it definitely feels realistic. There are safe houses popped all around the place, and some of these places are quite unique and cool, and of course you have many iconic locations in Manhattan. Most of the things are interactable. There are lots of little intel or little side objectives to do, collect things and, you know, get videos and recordings. Even you can even shoot rats, as I'm going to prove here. You can even shoot birds. Missions sort of just pop up as you go around the world. It's not like, you know, pick up a quest and do it. It's much more just you run around and you get to the mission, you do it. But these are not events. They do not repeat. You can only do them once. And as you can see, as you're going around the world, you can just literally bump into enemies anywhere. I have the most overpowered gear for walking around the streets, so I'm about to, you know, have some of the worst accuracy of all time there. But as you can see, these guys, well, you probably just about can't, but these guys are actually shooting each other. It is actually rival gangs, so enemies can fire amongst each other, and it just adds to the realism. In combat, you've got a host of grenades that you can choose from, not included the abilities. You get extra grenades. These are consumables. You've also got consumables which allow for healing, explosive bullets, soda for skilled cooldown reduction, which can all be collected in the medical wing once you have built the disaster aid. So, endgame I hear you calling. This is an MMO after all. The endgame revolves pretty much, or for PvE at least, completely revolves around Phoenix credits, which can only be obtained by challenging mode missions. These are very difficult and often require pugs though, and there's only 4 of them in the game, which leads to it being quite repetitive. And even though the AI are very strong, it does start to feel like a grind after a week or so. The next mode down, hard mode, is just ridiculously easy, and there should be a midpoint between the two. Although it is worth mentioning that there will be a raid coming out. I don't think this is going to have the longevity of a true MMO. And also, as of this moment, you currently cannot get chess pieces or gloves without going into PvP Dark Zone, which is a disadvantage, because unless you want to get brutally murdered by hordes of groups of players who are just teaming up on people, it's going to be very difficult to actually get full gear. The only other way to get it would be get lucky out of a drop, and that chance of that dropping is quite low. And as you can see here on the map, I'm showing you some of the repeatable missions. So you can, luckily, you can change the stats on some of your gear. However, this is done by recalibration, which I think is just an absolute flop in this game. Reason being, you can only change one stat. Once you've changed that stat, you can't change anything else on the weapon or the armor. Sorry, you can't do it on the weapon, only on the armor. Also, you roll for a chance to get something, as you can see. So as far as I'm concerned, I could not be getting what I actually wanted. This just is pretty bad, and also it doubles in cost every time you roll, which is just pretty sour tasting, and it can be very costly, especially when you have yellow or the highest level of gear. It takes 30 Phoenix credits, and then it will take 60 or 32 and then 64 and then double each time, and it just means that really you have to just grind a lot more, which makes the game it just feels like you don't progress for quite a lot of time. So I don't have much to say about the Dark Zone because I didn't go in there very much. But for the time I have been in there, it's quite an exhilarating experience. You do go in kind of worried about every single other player you see, that they're all of a sudden going to try and betray you and kill you. It's quite exhilarating, but the problem is you don't really get too much gear from it because you're too busy getting ganked. The way it works is you go in there, you kill some hard bosses with other players, and you loot their stuff. You're limited to about 7, maybe a bit more, possibly up to about 9, I'd say, inventory slots. And you get the gear, and you have to get to an extraction zone. You pop a flare and wait 1.5 minutes. All the time you can be killed to have your gear stolen from you, from the player that killed you. It's okay, to be fair. I did enjoy it when I was in it, but the problem is, when groups of players just gang up on you, you're just trying to get gear really, and it's a bit annoying really. So my general overall verdict into the game is that the combat system is very strong. The abilities do feel like they have quite a good impact. The movement can be a little bit stiff at times, but generally it's not too much of a problem. I do like the guns, although I do feel that all SMGs felt the same apart from the magazine size really. Other than that, they didn't feel different enough in my opinion. And I do wish that you could change abilities much more easily in combat, because I think it would add a bit more dimensions. The recalibration in crafting, in my opinion, is a bit of a backstep. I feel that they shouldn't have to roll for random stats, because it's just, I mean, the odds of the gear having all of the talents and stats that you want on it is just so slim by the time you've, added up all the stats. And then even if you get them all in one stat off, you need to recalibrate it, and it's just really expensive. And based on the fact that you can get, about 50 for a challenging daily, 30 for the 2 hard dailies, it's just not enough really to justify doubling it each time. So the graphics are obviously very strong, and the map itself is quite large, and there's quite a lot of missions that you can do, although quite a lot of them are repeated maps and repeated mission types, even if they're in different places, so it's a bit repetitive there. Although the end game, I do feel it's quite a big grind, quite a lot of repetition of the missions. So it's a very good game, but there are some rough edges that I do feel need to be attended to. Thank you for watching The Division. Very quick note, the other review that I'll be doing, the update review, will not be out immediately, but I will put it in the description. Thank you!